Enter time, as chorus. I, that please some, try all, both joy and terror. Of good and bad, that make an unfold error. Now take upon me, in the name of time, to use my wings, impute it not a crime. To me, or my swift passage, that I slide o'er 16 years, and leave the growth untried of that wide gap. Winter's Tale. Our narration is now about to make a large stride, and omit a space of nearly 17 years, during which nothing occurred of any particular consequence with respect to the story we have undertaken to tell. The gap is a wide one, yet if the reader's experience in life enables him to look back on so many years, the space will scarce appear longer in his recollection than the time consumed in turning these pages. It was, then, in the month of November, about 17 years after the catastrophe related in the last chapter, that, during a cold and stormy night, a social group had closed around the kitchen fire of the Gordon Arms at Kippletringan, a small but comfortable inn kept by Mrs. McCandlish in that village. The conversation which passed among them will save me the trouble of telling the few events occurring during this chasm in our history, with which it is necessary that the reader should be acquainted. Mrs. McCandlish, throned in a comfortable easy chair lined with black leather, was regaling herself and a neighboring gossip or two with a cup of genuine tea, and at the same time keeping a sharp eye upon her domestics, as they went and came in prosecution of their various duties and commissions. The clerk and precentor of the parish enjoyed at a little distance his Saturday night's pipe, and aided its bland fumigation by an occasional sip of brandy and water. Deacon Bearcliff, a man of great importance in the village, combined the indulgence of both parties. He had his pipe and his teacup, the latter being laced with a little spirits. One or two clowns sat at some distance, drinking their twopenny ale. "Are ye sure the parlour's ready for them, and the fire burning clear, and the chimney no smoking?" said the hostess to a chambermaid. She was answered in the affirmative. "Ain wadna be uncivil to them, especially in their distress," said she, turning to the deacon. "Assuredly not, Mrs. McCandlish, assuredly not. I am sure ony SMA thing they might want frae my shop, under 7, or 8, or 10 pounds, I would book them as readily for it as the first in the country." "Do they come in the old chaise?" "I dare say no," said the precentor, "for Miss Bertram comes on the white pony ilka day to the kirk, and a constant kirk-keeper she is, and it's a pleasure to hear her singing the psalms, winsome young thing." "Aye, and the young Laird of Hazelwood rides hame half the road wy her after sermon," said one of the gossips in company. "I wonder how auld Hazelwood likes that." "I kenna how he may like it now," answered another of the tea drinkers, "but the day has been one Ellangowan wad hae liked as little to see his daughter taking up with their son." "Aye, has been," answered the first, with somewhat of emphasis. "I am sure, neighbour Ovens," said the hostess, "the Hazelwoods of Hazelwood, though they are a very good old family in the county, never thought, till within these twa score o' years, of evening themselves till the Ellangowans." "Wow, woman, the Bertrams of Ellangowan are the auld Dingaways Langsyne. There is a saying about ane o' them marrying a daughter of the King of Man. It begins, Blythe Bertram's ta'en him o'er the fame, to wed a wife, and bring her hame. I dore say Mr. Scray can sing us the ballant." "Good wife," said Scray, gathering up his mouth, and sipping his tiff of brandy punch with great solemnity, "our talents were genus to other use than to sing daft old sangs a saying o' the Sabbath day." "Hout fie, Mr. Scray, I as warrant I hae heard you sing a blithe sang on Saturday at Ian before now. But as for the chaise, Deacon, it hasna been out of the coach-house since Mrs. Bertram died, that's 16 or 17 years sinsyne. Jock Jabos is away wy a chaise of mine for them, I wonder he's no come back. It's pit mirk, but there's no an ill turn on the road but TWA, and the brig our Warwick Burn is safe enough, if he haw to the right side." But then there's Heaviside Bray, that's just a murder for post cattle, but Jock kens the road brawly. A loud rapping was heard at the door. That's no them. I dinna hear the wheels. Grizzle, ye limmer, gang to the door. It's a single gentleman, whined out Grizzle, maun I take him into the parlour? Foul be in your feet, then, it'll be some English rider. Coming without a servant at this time o' night. Has the hostler ta'en the horse? Ye may light a spunk o' fire in the red room. I wish, ma'am, said the traveller, entering the kitchen, you would give me leave to warm myself here, for the night is very cold. His appearance, voice, and manner produced an instantaneous effect in his favour. He was a handsome, tall, thin figure, dressed in black, as appeared when he laid aside his riding coat. His age might be between 40 and 50, his cast of features grave and interesting, and his air somewhat military. Every point of his appearance and address bespoke the gentleman. Long habit had given Mrs. McCandlish an acute tact in ascertaining the quality of her visitors, and proportioning her reception accordingly. To every guest the appropriate speech was made, and every duty with distinction paid. Respectful, easy, pleasant, or polite. Your Honour's servant. Mr. Smith, good night. On the present occasion she was low in her courtesy and profuse in her apologies. The stranger begged his horse might be attended to, she went out herself to school the hostler. There was never a prettier bit o' horseflesh in the stable o' the Gordon Arms, said the man, which information increased the landlady's respect for the rider. Finding, on her return, that the stranger declined to go into another apartment, which, indeed, she allowed, would be but cold and smoky till the fire blazed up, she installed her guest hospitably by the fireside, and offered what refreshment her house afforded. A cup of your tea, ma'am, if you will favour me. Mrs. McCandlish bustled about, reinforced her teapot with hyson, and proceeded in her duties with her best grace. We have a very nice parlour, sir, and everything very agreeable for gentlefolks, but it's bespoke the night for a gentleman and his daughter that are going to leave this part of the country. Ane of my chaises is gain for them, and will be back forthwith. They're no a say e-will in the world as they have been, but we're as subject to ups and downs in this life, as your honour must needs can, but is not the tobacco reek disagreeable to your honour? By no means, ma'am, I am an old campaigner, and perfectly used to it. Will you permit me to make some inquiries about a family in this neighbourhood? The sound of wheels was now heard, and the landlady hurried to the door to receive her expected guests, but returned in an instant, followed by the postilion. No, they canna come at no rate, the laird's sae ill. But God help them, said the landlady, the morn's the term, the very last day they can bide in the house, a thing's to be roupit. Weel, but they can come at no rate, I tell ye, Mr. Bertram canna be moved. What Mr. Bertram, said the stranger, not Mr. Bertram of Ellangowan. I hope. Just e'en that same, sir, and if ye be a friend o' his, ye have come at a time when he's sair bested. I have been abroad for many years, is his health so much deranged? Aye, and his affairs said the deacon, the creditors have entered into possession of the estate, and it's for sale, and some that made the maist by him I name nae names, but Mrs. McCandlish kens wha I mean. The landlady shook her head significantly, there's sae rest on him e'en now. I have a SMA matter due myself, but I would rather have lost it than gain to turn the old man out of his house, and him just dying. Aye, but, said the parish clerk, Factorglassen wants to get rid of the old laird, and drive on the sale, for fear the airmail should cast up upon them, for I have heard say, if there was an airmail they couldna sell the estate for all Ellangowan's debt. He had a son born a good many years ago, said the stranger, he is dead, I suppose? "Nay man can say for that," answered the clerk mysteriously. "Dead," said the deacon, "I see warrant him dead lang syne, he hasna been heard o' these 20 years or thereby." "I what will it's no 20 years," said the landlady, "it's no abune 17 at the outside in this very month. It made an unco noise ower this country, the bairn disappeared the very day that Supervisor Kennedy cam by his end. If he ken this country lang syne, your honour wad maybe ken Frank Kennedy the supervisor. He was a heartsome pleasant man, and company for the best gentleman in the county, and muckle mirth he's made in this house. I was young then, sir, and newly married to Bailie MacCandlish, that's dead and gone, a sigh, and muckle fun I'd had wi' the supervisor. He was a daft dog. Oh, and he could hae hodden aff the smugglers a bit. But he was venturesome. And so ye see, sir, there was a king's sloop down in Wigton Bay, and Frank Kennedy, he behoved to have her up to chase Dirk Hatterake's lugger. Ye'll mind Dirk Hatterake, deacon? I dare say ye may have dealt wi' him." The deacon gave a sort of acquiescent nod and humph. "He was a daring chield, and he fought his ship till she blew up like peelings of ingans, and Frank Kennedy, he had been the first man to board, and he was flung like a quarter of a mile off, and fell into the water below the rock at Warrock Point, that they see the gaugers loo to this day." "And Mr. Bertram's child," said the stranger, "what is all this to him?" "Oh, sir, the bairn I held an unco work wi' the supervisor, and it was generally thought he went on board the vessel along wi' him, as bairns are forward to be in mischief." "No, no," said the deacon, "ye're clean out there, lucky, for the young laird was stown away by a randy gypsy woman they see'd Meg Merrileys. I mind her looks will, in revenge for Ellangowan having guard her be drummed through Kippletringan for stealing a silver spoon." "If ye'll forge him, deacon," said the precentor, "ye're Ian as far wrang as the good wife." "And what is your edition of the story, sir?" said the stranger, turning to him with interest. "That's maybe no say canny to tell," said the precentor, with solemnity. Upon being urged, however, to speak out, he preluded with 2 or 3 large puffs of tobacco smoke, and out of the cloudy sanctuary which these whiffs formed around him delivered the following legend, having cleared his voice with 1 or 2 hems, and imitating, as near as he could, the eloquence which weakly thundered over his head from the pulpit. "What we are now to deliver, my brethren, my good friends, was not done in a corner, and may serve as an answer to which advocates, atheists, and misbelievers of all kinds. Ye must know that the worshipful Laird of Ellangowan was not so precise as he might have been in clearing his land of witches, concerning whom it is said, Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, nor of those who had familiar spirits, and consulted with divination, and sorcery, and lots, which is the fashion with the Egyptians, as they see themselves, and other unhappy bodies, in this our country. And the Laird was 3 years married without having a family, and he was a left to himself, that it was thought he held our muckle troking and communing white that Meg Merrileys, what was the maist notorious witch in a Galloway in Dumfriesshire baith." "Aweel, I wot there's something in that," said Mrs. MacCandlish. "I've kenned him order her TWA glasses o' brandy in this very house." "Aweel, good wife, then the less I lee. Say the lady was wide bairn at last, and in the night when she should have been delivered there comes to the door of the hothouse, the place of Ellangowan as they see'd an ancient man, strangely habited, and asked for quarters. His head, and his legs, and his arms were bare, although it was winter time o' the year, and he had a grey beard 3/4 lang. Weel, he was admitted, and when the lady was delivered, he craved to know the very moment of the hour of the birth, and he went out and consulted the stars. And when he came back he telled the Laird that the evil one wad have power over the knave bairn that was that night born, and he charged him that the babe should be bred up in the ways of piety, and that he should hae a godly minister at his elbow to pray wi the bairn in for him. And the aged man vanished away, and no man of this country ever saw mair o' him." "Now, that will not pass," said the postilion, who, at a respectful distance, was listening to the conversation, begging Mr. Scrayas and the company's pardon. "There was no mony hairs on the warlock's face as there's on Lettergee's." Footnote: The precentor is called by Alan Ramsay, the Letter D of Halley Rhyme, ein at this moment, and he had as good a pair of boots as a man need streak on his legs, and gloves too, and I should understand boots by this time, I think. Wisht, Jock, said the landlady. Aye. And what do ye ken o' the matter, friend Jabos, said the precentor, contemptuously. No muckle, to be sure, Mr. Scray, only that I lived within a penny stane cast off the head o' the avenue at Ellangowan, when a man came jingling to our door that night the young laird was born, and my mother sent me, that was a halflin callant, to show the stranger the gate to the place, which, if he had been sick a warlock, he might hae kenned himsel', ane wad think, and he was a young, weel-dressed lad, like an Englishman. And I tell ye he had as good a hat, and boots, and gloves, as ony gentleman need to have. To be sure he did gie an awesome glance up at the old castle, and there was some spaewort gied on, I heard that, but as for his vanishing, I held the stirrup missile when he gied away, and he gied me around half-crown. He was riding on a hike they see supple Sam, it belanged to the George at Dumfries, it was a blood-bay beast, very ill out the spavin, I hae seen the beast baith before and since. Aweel, Jock, answered Mr. Scray, with a tone of mild solemnity, our accounts differ in no material particulars, but I had no knowledge that ye had seen the man. So ye see, my friends, that this soothsayer having prognosticated evil to the boy, his father engaged a godly minister to be with him morn and night. Aye, that was him they see'd Dominie Sampson, said the postilion. He's but a dumb dog that, observed the deacon, I have heard that he never could preach 5 words of a sermon enlang, for as lang as he has been licensed. Weel, but, said the precentor, waving his hand, as if eager to retrieve the command of the discourse, he waited on the young laird by night and day. Now it chanced, when the bairn was near 5 years old, that the laird had a sight of his errors, and determined to put these Egyptians aff his ground, and he caused them to remove, and that Frank Kennedy, that was a rough, swearing fellow, he was sent to turn them off. And he cursed and damned at them, and they sure at him, and that Meg Marilease, that was the maist powerful with the enemy of mankind, she as good as said she would have him, body and soul, before 3 days were ower his head. And I have it from a sure hand, and that's ane wha saw it, and that's John Wilson, that was the laird's groom, that Meg appeared to the laird as he was riding hame from Singleside, over Gibby's Knowe, and threatened him what she wad do to his family, but whether it was Meg, or something were in her likeness, for it seemed bigger than ony mortal creature, John could not say. Aweel, said the postilion, it might be a say, I canna say against it, for I was not in the country at the time, but John Wilson was a blustering kind of chield, without the heart of a sprug. And what was the end of all this, said the stranger, with some impatience. Oh, the event and upshot of it was, sir, said the precentor, that while they were all looking on, beholding a king's ship chase a smuggler, this Kennedy suddenly brake away frae them without ony reason that could be described. Ropes nor toes wad not hae held him, and made for the wood of Warwick as fast as his beast could carry him, and by the way he met the young laird and his governor, and he snatched up the bairn, and sure, if he was bewitched, the bairn should have the same luck as him. And the minister followed as fast as he could, and almost as fast as them, for he was wonderfully swift of foot, and he saw Meg the witch, or her master in her similitude, rise suddenly out of the ground, and clot the bairn suddenly out of the ganger's arms, and then he rampaged and drew his sword, for ye ken a fie man and a cusser firstna the deal. I believe that's very true, said the postilion. So, sir, she grip-hit him, and clawed him like a stain from the sling ower the craigs of Warwick Head, where he was found that evening, but what became of the babe, frankly I cannot say. But he that was minister here then, that's now in a better place, had an opinion that the bairn was only conveyed to fairyland for a season. The stranger had smiled slightly at some parts of this recital, but ere he could answer the clatter of a horse's hoofs was heard, and a smart servant, handsomely dressed, with a cockade in his hat, bustled into the kitchen, with "Make a little room, good people," when, observing the stranger, he descended at once into the modest and civil domestic, his hat sunk down by his side, and he put a letter into his master's hands. The family at Ellangowan, sir, are in great distress, and unable to receive any visits. I know it, replied his master. And now, madam, if you will have the goodness to allow me to occupy the parlor you mentioned, as you are disappointed of your guests." "Certainly, sir," said Mrs. McCandlish, and hastened to light the way with all the imperative bustle which an active landlady loves to display on such occasions. "Young man," said the deacon to the servant, filling a glass, "ye'll no be the war o' this, after your ride." "Not a feather, sir, thank ye, your very good health, sir." "And wha may your master be, friend?" "What, the gentleman that was here? That's the famous Colonel Mannering, sir, from the East Indies." "What, him we read of in the newspapers?" Aye, just the same. It was he relieved Cuttyburn, and defended Chindalore, and defeated the great Maratha chief, Ram Jolly Bundleman. I was with him in most of his campaigns." "Lord save us," said the landlady, "I must go see what he would have for supper, that I should set him down here." "Oh, he likes that all the better, mother. You never saw a plainer creature in your life than our old colonel, and yet he has a spice of the devil in him too." The rest of the evening's conversation below stairs tending little to edification, we shall, with the reader's leave, step up to the parlor.